everybody. Now that we've actually talked about how to set up our clay, clean up our clay, I want to show you what we will be creating with our clay. So I've gotten out my box and I very carefully open it, gently hold the bottom of the bowl, and I'm going to take out my clay. So I'm taking out my bowl, my clay. You can leave your paper towel to the side, your stuff to the side. Make sure you leave room for other people. And we are going to be creating bowls using coils. So once you get your clay, you're going to want to break it into smaller pieces. So I just use my hands, but you could, if you want, use your clay knife and divide it into a smaller piece. And a coil is kind of a fancy word for like a long wormy or a hot dog of clay. So we are going to use our hands to sculpt it. And there's a lot of different ways you could do this. I just want to show you the way that is easiest for me, and hopefully this will give you some starting points and you can find the way that's easier for you. So what I do is I actually start by kind of squeezing it into a coil shape. I find it's a lot easier if I can start it a little bit and I squeeze it into more of a coil shape. Then from there, I transfer my large coil to the canvas mat, and I often stand when I'm doing this, as you can see, and I use my fingers on both hands for this next step. Some people use their palms, but I prefer my fingers. And I start rolling, and I kind of roll from the center out. And I'm using my fingers, and I roll and roll and roll. And you want to try to get this to about the width of your finger. It is going to start to dry out. So we do need a little bit of water in our cup or a little bit of slip. And just know that as you're doing it, it will crack, it will get dry, and that's completely normal. So keep rolling out your coils. If it gets a little bit flat and it's kind of flopping, I just stop and I kind of pinch it a little bit. You can also cut it if you want to work with shorter coils. Whatever makes it easier for you. You might end up doing a few different kinds of coils, using different techniques to see what works the best for you. And you just keep working on your coil, working on your coil, working on your coil until it's about the width of your finger. Then if you need to, you can kind of smooth a little bit using either water or slip. And we are going to fill our bowls with coils. And you could do any kind of shape you want. You could start by going even thinner. And in the beginning, I often go slow, but if you've done clay before, you might want to get a little bit more advanced. And when you start to curl your coil, definitely make sure you're adding some water to it. Go slow. And you can start to make different forms out of your coil. So I'm going to start with a spiral. So I'm spiraling it up like a cinnamon bun. And I'm starting to add my spiral. Oh, it's cracking here a little bit. No big deal, just use my finger and a little bit of water, not too much. And keep spiraling, spiraling, spiraling. And I'm gonna start with a spiral. You don't have to, but that was the shape I started with. And then you put it inside of your bowl, right on top of the plastic wrap. It's awkward with the plastic wrap, but you want it on the plastic wrap. And we're gonna make all sorts of different coils. And we are going to take those coils and we are going to add them inside of our bowl until it fills up the bottom and the sides. And I'll show you some examples of that in a moment in the slideshow. So these are our coil bowls. So again, if you want, you could make a spiral, use some water because it's going to dry out and it's going to want to crack. And you very carefully spiral it up like a cinnamon bun. And it's okay if it's not perfect in there because we are going to smooth it once it's in the bowl. And you can start to make some really cool coil forms. And I'll show you how this could go in right next to my other sphere. The other cool thing is the water kind of acts like glue. But if the water isn't really gluing your spiral together that well, you can use slip, which is a combination of clay and water, and put some slip on there. And that will really kind of glue it up if it's really not sticking too good. So there I have another spiral. And this time I have to make some decisions. Am I going to put it next to it, up the side. Where am I going to put it? And you can start to add more and more and more inside your coil bowl to create different forms. I'll show you some finished coil bowls in the slideshow, and hopefully that'll give you some ideas, but some people like to just play. Once you get more advanced, you can do things like braiding your coils. Some people like to do tiny spheres, and they use the slip to just stick a lot of spheres in there. And if you get really advanced, you can start to make small sculptures and stick some small sculptures all together in there to build it up. You could also plan ahead if you want. I've seen bowls that look like sunflowers before, so the sides are flat petals. I've seen bowls that look like coral from the ocean. So you can come up with a plan first if you want, or you can just kind of play. Maybe even make a big bowl and a small bowl. But these will, believe it or not, be functional. Remember, when it's time to clean up, you take anything that you haven't, any of your extra clay that you haven't sculpted yet. I wrap it with the wet paper towel. I have a coil, I'm gonna put it in there. Put it right on top of your bowl. It's okay, it won't squish it. And make sure your bowl goes inside of your bag. And make sure your bag is sealed. Don't pick up the bag, pick up the bowl. And then you're going to put that inside of your bin. Close it up, bring it to the shelf, and make sure you're washing your tools and putting everything away. And we will have to wipe down the tables at the end of the period. Thanks for hanging with me.